Hi there, I'm Miles Peterson, and you're watching The 3D Engineer. And today, I'm going to be doing a quick overview and test of my first Sentry Siren. Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to present the Mini 40V2T Siren. I stinking adore this thing. This thing is just beautiful. We have realistic stickers, accurate scaling, realistic wind up and wind down times, realistic sound. This thing is awesome. So this video shouldn't be too long. We're just going to be doing a quick overview and test of the siren. So without further wait, let's do just that. Alright, here we are up close. This is my mini Sentry Siren 40V2T. As requested, it's done. And I'm just going to be doing a very quick overview of this thing, because I know a lot of people out there are probably wanting to know how to build this, so hopefully this helps you. So let's just start with the bottom and kind of work our way up. So here we have your 10 port. This shares 2 ports per horn, just like the real thing. These are the horns, and they're really quite realistic, I'd say. They're tipped, modern Sentry horn style. If you really wanted, you could remodel flat horns to be older style 40V2T, but I decided to make mine modern as they're more common to find. Here's the 15 port, and this shares 3 ports per horn, just like the real thing. There it is. You can see that. So this is 10 port, and this is 15 port, so it's a 10-15 port siren, which is a really cool port combination not seen since the decal red arrow, and those sirens are incredibly rare and old. At the bottom here we have our 6-legged mount and a cone, this kind of conical piece that shoots the sound out. According to Sentry, that's what that's supposed to do, as well as keep rain out, but this isn't intended to be outside, but it just fits the design. Now here's something really quite important, and it's how these horns are attached to the stator. This is the 10 port side and 15 port, and they're basically the same, but we have, these are M2x6 screws, so they're M2 size, they're 6mm long, and to ensure that they wouldn't scrape against the rotors, because they actually bolt into the stators, I have these printable washers. They're just 3D printable, and you put them on the screws. These can easily be adjusted for a longer screw, but for an M2x6 screw, which I recommend, this is working fine, and I'm really not getting any scraping at all. The horns kind of overlap with each other, kind of like the real thing, so yeah, it's really quite cool how these are on. They really won't go anywhere. Honestly, this horn would probably just snap clean off before it actually ripped the screws out, so it's really quite strong. Here's the motor housing, and the reason I say motor housing is because the actual motor cover is inside there, and it actually houses the motor. It uses a dual shaft 390 motor, and those things are really quite cool. Let's see, I have one right here. Yeah, that is inside of there right now, and you may be thinking, it's one of those crappy DC motors. Well, it's actually really quite high quality. I actually opened mine up and tweaked the brush tightness, which really caused it to have a really neat wind down. You don't have to do that, but I did, and I will probably do that when I sell these. Alright, I seem to be getting carried away. Here's the logos, our official Sentry Siren logo, the modern logo, and the 40V2T font. These were printed on clear sticker paper. Just my inkjet printer at home was enough to print this. But yeah, Sentry Siren logo, and you can see we have 40V2T, 14V. I plan to be making a 14V soon, as well as a 10V if I can get dimensions for the rotor on that. So you might want to consider subscribing so you don't miss out on that. I've got plenty more Sentry Sirens coming from this. 15 port, we got a similar story with the 10 port. It's just screwed on with M2x6. Really all the screws on this entire siren are M2 screws. Here's the upper air intake, very realistic to the real thing. Almost exact, I would say, but yeah. I don't have mesh. I didn't really bother putting on mesh. I kind of ran out of time, and I don't think that's too important on this siren, so I did not add it. When I sell them, maybe I'll consider adding mesh there if I can figure out how to make it not look too ugly. Here's the hat of the siren, and it's screwed onto the upper air intake with these 4 M2 screws. And here's the eye bolt. I don't know the actual size of this thing. I mean, it's right there. These are the ones I used. But as long as your eye bolt has an M2 thread, it'll fit right here. So you can get these exact ones and they'll fit just fine. And I can actually pick the entire siren up by this with no problem at all. So it's really quite cool how I can do that. Quickly, over on the back of this thing, we just have our USB cable coming out. And yes, this thing is actually USB powered. It's insane. It does draw quite a bit of power, so I really strongly advise against plugging this into any sensitive equipment like a computer, as it could probably damage circuitry on there. But a phone adapter or something, yeah, it's great. I'm actually going to be using one to power it in this video. But yeah, that runs up to the motor cover, and in the motor cover there's a buck converter. Since this motor draws so much current like the real thing, I couldn't use resistors to regulate the pitch, so I had to use a buck converter to step down the voltage, which is working great for me. It's just connected, the input's just connected to the USB here, and it runs up to the motor. I would open this, but it's really quite tricky to get on the inside of there now that I've sealed everything up. I could technically unscrew everything and take the rotors out, but I'm not going to be doing that today, as what's in there is fairly simple. Here's a demonstration of what the motor cover looks like. It's kind of an older version. The newer one has an insert for the buck converter, which you may see in the 3D files. Alright, I have everything set up here. Here's the decibel reader in the corner. We should be seeing a very high reading on that. This siren is very loud as it uses directional rotors, and is based off of just a really loud siren. So yeah, it's really quite loud. I think it's around 100 decibels, half a foot away. And this decibel reader is about a couple inches from that horn there, so we should be seeing a very high reading on that. I'm running this off of 5 volt 1 amp, as anything above 1 amp seems to give this thing a pretty quick wind up, and that doesn't sound too realistic, so to help with that, I'll be running this off of 1 amp rather than anything above that. Alright, now enough of me yapping. I know you want to hear this thing being tested, and I do too, so let's hear it in action. Let's start with a short alert. The pitch may not be perfect, and that's just because the brushes kind of heat up while this thing is in use, so I hope you can understand that. But here we go. Whew. My gosh, was that loud. We were reading 100 decibels here. Wow, amazing. The wind down on that is just great. Alright, now I'll be sounding this off an attack. I will be doing this completely manually, but it should sound pretty good. I'm itching to hear this thing in attack. It should sound pretty epic. Alright, here we go. Oh, wow. Again, epic. Well, there you have it. That was a quick overview and test of my miniature Sentry Siren 40V2T. Man, this thing is really awesome. I really enjoyed hearing the long wind up and wind down with those weights. If you're looking into printing your own, 3D files are in the description, available to download for free on Tinkercad, where you'll also find the rest of my mini sirens if you're interested. I would also like to quickly mention that it is very likely I will be selling 40V2Ts, along with a couple other Sentries, of course, the 14V, maybe a 10V. I'm waiting to get dimensions on that before I actually model one, but you might be able to expect that in the future, so you might want to consider subscribing so you don't miss out. Well, that's all for today. I'm Miles Peterson, and you stay creative.